raised a glass and made a joke I'll never forget. Here's to the old lady heading for a nursing home. Soon she'll just be a memory. The whole table laughed. By Monday morning, I had a different plan. I quietly liquidated my $8 million estate and booked a world cruise. Stay with me until the end of this story and drop the city you're watching from so I can see how far it travels. I never imagined turning 70 would feel less like a celebration and more like attending my own farewell. The restaurant was flawless. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tables, a cake crowned with delicate sugar flowers. I wore my favorite navy dress, the one my late husband Thomas always loved, and the pearl necklace he'd given me for our 40th anniversary. My son Michael greeted me with a quick kiss, already glancing at his phone. My grandson Tyler barely looked up from his screen, and Yara, my daughter-in-law, swept in wearing a scarlet designer gown, sparkling like she owned the night. I tried for years to welcome Yara into the family, sharing recipes, telling stories, even giving them the down payment for their home. But nothing was ever enough. The dinner chatter skimmed the surface. Michael bragged about a promotion, Yara about her charity work, Tyler about wanting a new car. No one asked about my painting class or the community garden I'd started. Then came the toast. Yara stood, voice ringing across the room. To Viola on her 70th birthday? I smiled until she finished the sentence. To the old lady who'll soon be in a nursing home. Soon she'll just be a memory. Laughter erupted. Michael chuckled. Tyler finally looked up and smirked. Even the waiter hid a grin. I sat frozen, champagne glass halfway to my lips. Yara added, "Come on, Viola, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. Everyone knows how independent you are." The way she said independent made it sound like an illness. Michael called for my speech. I forced a smile. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The lie tasted more bitter than the champagne. The rest of the evening blurred. Polite smiles, flavorless cake, hastily chosen gifts. Yara's words echoed in my head all night. When Michael dropped me off at the house Thomas and I had shared for 4 decades, he kissed my cheek. "Great dinner, Mom. See you Sunday." Inside, I locked the door and let the tears come, raw, shaking sobs I hadn't felt since Thomas's funeral. I cried for years of trying to please a family that treated me like an afterthought. I cried for Thomas, who would have been outraged by Yara's cruelty. And I cried for myself, for waiting so long to take back my life. When the tears finally stopped, I faced the mirror. It was time for something new. My makeup was streaked and my eyes were swollen, but something inside me had shifted. I looked at my reflection and whispered, "Enough." That night, lying awake, I made a choice. My life wasn't ending. It was just beginning, and it would finally be on my terms. Monday morning resolve. When dawn broke, the clarity was undeniable. I slipped into my best charcoal pantsuit, the one I'd worn to Thomas's funeral, and felt the weight of a new chapter. My first stop was Hamilton Trust Bank. Jim Peterson, the manager who'd known Thomas and me for decades, raised an eyebrow as I explained what I wanted. "That's a substantial liquidation, Viola." "Are you sure? These investments are performing well." "I'm certain," I said without a tremor. "Close everything except my checking account. Leave $10,000 there." He polished his glasses nervously. "May I ask why? Is everything all right?" I thought of Yara's cruel toast, the years of Sunday lunches where my voice never mattered. "Everything is finally going to be all right," I answered. 2 hours later, the paperwork was in motion. $8 million, Thomas's life insurance, our investments, the proceeds from selling our business, would soon be fully under my control. Rewriting the future. Next, I headed to Gerald Webb's law office. Jerry, our family attorney and Thomas's old college roommate, greeted me with a warm handshake. "I need to change my will," I told him. He studied my face. "Any particular reason?" I told him about the birthday dinner, the mock toast, the years of quiet disrespect. His expression hardened. "Thomas would be furious," he said. "Yes," I replied softly. "But Thomas isn't here." "I am, and it's time I take charge of what's left of my life." When I left his office, the late afternoon sun felt like freedom. No more automatic yes. At a small cafe where Thomas and I once shared Sunday brunch, I savored a cappuccino and breathed deeply for the first time in years. My phone buzzed. Michael. I let it ring out. A text followed. "Mom, don't forget Tyler needs a ride to practice. Yara has her charity lunch." Another message came, then another. For 5 years, I'd been the on-call driver, cook, and convenient wallet. I slipped the phone back into my bag and didn't reply. Instead, I opened the travel site I'd been quietly visiting for months, a 15-day Mediterranean cruise, Barcelona to Athens, with stops in France, Italy, and the Greek islands. Thomas and I had once dreamed of that trip, but his health never allowed it. My finger hovered over the book now button. Could I really leave it all behind? The house where I'd raised my son? The life I'd built? The phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Yara. Viola, you're not answering. We really need you to get Tyler today. I pressed book now, the phone buzzed again. I can't miss this luncheon. It's for charity, you know. Call me back immediately, Yara's voice commanded through voicemail. That tone sealed my decision. I tapped book now, choosing a balcony suite for one. When the confirmation email arrived, a rush of excitement and a flicker of fear swept through me. I had never traveled alone. I had never made such a big choice without consulting someone. First my parents, then Thomas, then Michael, setting a new course. On the way home, I stopped at Barnes & Noble. I bought 3 Mediterranean travel guides, a fresh journal, and a book titled Solo Travel After 60. Planning something special? The young cashier asked with a bright smile. The biggest trip of my life, I said, matching her smile. Back home, I brewed tea and settled into Thomas's old armchair, the one we bought when Michael was born. I could almost see Thomas reading bedtime stories to our little boy while I watched from the doorway, heart full. Am I doing the right thing, Tom? I whispered to the quiet room. My eyes drifted to our 40th anniversary photo on the mantel. Thomas with his arm around me, both of us laughing. We had renewed our vows that day, promising to cherish each other until death parted us. Neither of us could have imagined the slower kind of loss, the erosion of respect, the fading of love into mere obligation. Drawing the line, the phone rang again. Michael, Mom, where have you been? Tyler needs... I can't today, I interrupted. I'm busy. Silence. I had never told him no. Busy? With what? My life, I said simply, and hung up. I opened my new journal and began mapping the next chapter, one that would belong only to me. 2 weeks of freedom. The following days were a blur of action and release. I sold my car to a young couple expecting their first child. I hired a property manager to put the house on the market, the colonial where I'd loved, lost, and quietly disappeared. I donated most of my clothes to the women's shelter, keeping only what I'd need for the cruise and whatever came after. Michael called again and again. I answered once, offering only, I'm making some changes. I'll explain when I'm ready. His voice hardened. Mom, you're not making sense. Why now? For now, I need some space, I replied. Space? From what? I almost laughed. From being everyone's convenient solution while my own needs vanish. But aloud I only said, I'll be in touch, and ended the call. Departure day. Morning arrived crisp and bright. My new suitcases waited by the door. Passport updated after Thomas passed but never used. Sat beside a fresh credit card linked solely to my own account. I walked through the house one last time, fingertips tracing familiar walls. At the bedroom door, I paused at Thomas's side of the bed, still perfectly made. I hope you understand, I whispered. I need to find myself again. At 9 a.m., the taxi pulled up. I climbed in without looking back, the sky opening wide. At the airport, my hands trembled as I checked my bags. I was really doing this, flying to Barcelona alone at 70. The flight was long, but peaceful. I watched 2 movies, ate the airline meal without complaint, and even slept a little. As we descended, sunlight danced on the turquoise Mediterranean below, and tears filled my eyes. I'd made it. The cruise terminal buzzed with troopers. Following the signs to the Celestial Voyager, I felt my heart race. The ship gleamed white against the blue sky, flags fluttering in a gentle breeze. First cruise? Asked the woman behind me in line, her American accent warm and familiar. Yes, I said, a smile spreading across my face. The first of many. I turned to see a slender woman about my age, short silver hair, bright blue eyes, and a knowing smile. Is it that obvious? I asked, matching her grin. You've got that look of terrified excitement, she laughed. I remember it from my first solo trip. Solo trip, I repeated, letting the word settle. I'm Agatha, she said, extending her hand. Viola Harrington, I replied. Oh, Viola, how about dinner tonight? First nights can feel daunting when you're on your own. I hesitated only a moment. I'd like that very much. A room with an ocean view. After check-in, I found my stateroom on deck 8, a balcony suite far more elegant than I'd imagined. A queen bed with crisp linens, a cozy sitting area, and a private balcony overlooking endless blue. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed. I'd switched it back on out of habit. 6 missed calls, a dozen texts, all from Michael and Yara. The newest message read, "Mom, where are you? The house is empty and your car is gone. Call me immediately." I pictured them arriving at my home, expecting Sunday lunch or a ride for Tyler, and finding only silence. A pang of guilt pricked me. What kind of mother leaves without explanation? Then I remembered Yara's cruel toast, the laughter, the years of being taken for granted. With steady fingers I typed, "I'm safe, taking some time for myself. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Please respect my need for space." I slipped the phone into the room's safe. Not off, just out of reach. Sailing away. A knock startled me. Agatha stood there in white linen pants and a turquoise blouse. "Ready for the sail-away party?" She beamed. Champagne on the top deck as Barcelona fades into the horizon. I smoothed the pale blue dress I'd bought just for this trip. "Ready," I said, and meant it. Up on deck, we watched the skyline recede, the spires of La Sagrada Familia glowing in the evening light. "To new beginnings," Agatha toasted. "To new beginnings," I echoed, our glasses clinking as the city disappeared into the endless Mediterranean. For the first time in years, the weight of expectation slid from my shoulders. I was free, a new rhythm. By day 5, life at sea felt both new and perfectly natural. I woke early to watch the sunrise from my balcony, wrapped in the ship's plush robe. Coffee arrived at my door. Then breakfast with Agatha, who had quickly become my compass in this uncharted chapter. A widow for 12 years, she told me how she'd sold her suburban home and turned grief into exploration. "My kids thought I was losing my mind," she said one morning as we sailed toward Naples. "What changed their minds?" I asked. "Time, and realizing I wasn't asking permission. I was simply informing them of my decisions." Her words struck deep. Days flowed with art classes, lectures, and excursions at each port. Evenings brought elegant dinners with new friends, a retired professor from Boston, a widowed doctor from Chicago, a couple celebrating 50 years together. For the first time in decades, I was known only as me. Not Thomas's wife, not Michael's mother, not Tyler's grandmother, just Viola, a woman with her own stories, her own opinions, her own heartbeat. In Marseille, I picked up a camera and discovered a love for photography, capturing the brilliant colors of the old port. Each shutter click felt like a promise to myself. This is my life now, unfolding, vibrant, and entirely my own. In Rome, I stood before Michelangelo's Pietà, tears streaming down my cheeks, overwhelmed by its quiet power. That evening, Agatha joined me on my balcony. The Italian coast glittered beyond the rail, and a bottle of deep red wine rested between us. "You're changing," she said, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I can see it day by day." "Is that strange at 70? I asked, swirling the glass. She laughed, a rich, confident sound that rode the sea breeze. "What's strange is believing we ever stop changing." Life is constant transformation. The tragedy is when we let others freeze us in place. Her words lingered as I thought of Michael and Yara, how easily I'd let them define me as a convenient resource, always available, never inconvenient. I realized the truth. I had confused love with usefulness, measuring my worth by how much they needed me instead of how much they respected me. Frantic messages. The next morning, as we docked in Naples, I finally checked my phone. 27 missed calls, dozens of texts. "Mom, where are you? This isn't funny anymore. We've called the police. Please just let us know you're alive." The last message, sent only hours earlier, was different. "Mom, it's Michael. I found the letter from the cruise line. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you just disappear?" So they discovered my destination. My property manager must have forwarded the mail. A heaviness settled in my chest. I hadn't wanted to frighten anyone, but I wasn't ready for the interrogation that a phone call would invite. After a long breath, I typed a short email. "Michael, I am safe and well on my Mediterranean cruise. I needed time for myself after years of putting everyone else first. I'm sorry for worrying you, but this journey is important to me. I will contact you when I return to the States. Until then, please respect my privacy. Love, Mom." I hit send and powered the phone down again. Naples awaited. Lessons in stone. That afternoon, Agatha and I wandered the haunting ruins of Pompeii. Our guide explained how the people of 79 AD had no warning before the volcano struck. I paused before the plaster cast of a woman, arms raised in a final futile defense. How many warnings had I ignored in my own life? Those quiet tremors of discontent I kept dismissing. "You're thinking of your family," Agatha said softly. I nodded. "I keep wondering if leaving like this was right. Would they have listened if you'd tried to explain?" she asked. The question hung in the warm air, unanswerable but clear. No, they would have soothed, promised, and returned to the comfortable status quo. An unexpected invitation. That evening, as the ship headed toward Greece, the phone in my stateroom rang. My heart jumped, expecting urgent news from home. Instead, it was the cruise director. "Mrs. Harrington, we'd love to feature some of your photographs in the ship's gallery." Another guest mentioned your remarkable eye for composition. "Me?" I stammered. "I'm just an amateur." "Sometimes the best perspectives come from those who don't know the rules," he replied. 2 days later, 5 of my photos, printed and framed by the ship's own photography team, hung in the onboard gallery beside works by professionals. Passengers I'd never met stopped to compliment the images, asking about my inspiration and technique. "I just started," I admitted to a couple from Australia. "This cruise is my first real adventure with a camera." "You've got a gift," the woman said. "The way you capture light is extraordinary." Even the ship's official photographer offered to buy 2 prints for the permanent dining room collection. Agatha nudged me when I stood speechless. That night, I sat alone on my balcony, champagne in hand, watching the moon shimmer across the Mediterranean. A warm breeze brushed my skin as I reflected on the day. Who was this woman, now accepting compliments with ease, exploring foreign cities on her own, sharing meals with strangers who quickly became friends? It was still me, always me, just waiting beneath layers of obligation. Like a butterfly leaving its chrysalis, I was finally stretching my wings. My phone rested silently on the bedside table, still powered down. Michael and his family felt like a distant chapter, carefully packed away like winter clothes in summer. Tomorrow we would reach Santorini, and I'd already signed up for a watercolor class to capture those blue domes and whitewashed walls. I wasn't just existing anymore. I was living, discovering, creating, becoming, and I had no intention of returning to the woman I used to be. The journey extends. The cruise meant to last 15 days became 30, then 45. When we reached Athens, the final stop on the original itinerary, Agatha and I sipped ouzo at a little taverna overlooking the Acropolis. "Why rush back?" she asked with a smile. "What's waiting for you that can't wait a little longer?" I couldn't name a single reason to say no. Those extra weeks became a gift I gave myself without guilt. I wandered ancient streets in Ephesus, haggled in Istanbul's Grand Bazaar, and watched the sun rise over the Black Sea from the ship's quiet deck. My camera came alive in my hands. I even sold 3 prints to fellow passengers, preparing to return. Eventually, the extended voyage ended. As the ship docked once more in Barcelona, a bittersweet mix of sadness and resolve filled me. I wasn't the same woman who had boarded nearly 2 months earlier. "What will you do now?" Agatha asked as we exchanged contact information. She invited me to a photography retreat in Provence. "I need to go home," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. Not to stay, but to settle things properly. She nodded, understanding. Running away had been necessary, but true freedom would come only when I could face my family on my own terms. A new home, a new self. The long flight back gave me time to plan. While I'd been at sea, the sale of my old house had finalized, adding to my growing nest egg. I'd already purchased a sleek downtown condominium, modern, manageable, and completely my own. When I finally powered up my phone, it exploded with notifications. The messages told a story. Anger, confusion, then a quiet, almost resigned acceptance. The most recent one, sent just 2 days earlier, was softer. "Mom, I don't understand why you left the way you did, but I hope you're finding what you're looking for. We miss you. Tyler keeps asking about you. Please come home." Home. The word felt different now. My house was gone. My possessions were donated or stored. Home was no longer a place. It was a feeling. The piece of living true to myself. I booked a hotel for the night. One more morning of independence before facing them. Facing the past. The next day, I drove the familiar route to Michael and Yara's immaculate suburban house. The driveway looked unchanged, yet it felt like someone else's memory. Before I could knock, the door opened. Michael stood there, his expression a mix of relief and exhaustion. "Mom," he said, his voice catching. "You're back." "I'm back," I answered, stepping inside. The interior was just as I remembered. Neutral tones Yara adored, spotless to the point of feeling unlived in. Tyler, perched at the kitchen counter, looked up and beamed. "Grandma, you look different." I smiled, touching my shorter, stylish haircut. My coral blouse and white pants, bought in Santorini, felt like a quiet declaration of freedom. The turquoise necklace from Istanbul a sparkling reminder of my journey. "Where's Yara?" I asked. "Pilates," Michael said, studying me, as if I were a puzzle he couldn't solve. "She'll be back soon." "Mom, what happened? Why did you just disappear like that?" I set my purse on the kitchen island and met his eyes. "I needed to find myself again." He frowned. "Find yourself?" "Mom, you're 70, not 17. The old me would have flinched at the dismissal. The new me simply smiled. "That's exactly the problem, Michael. Somewhere along the way, we all started believing that after a certain age, women should fade, become convenient, stop having dreams or needs of their own." To my surprise, Tyler nodded, his young face thoughtful. "Like in that toast at your birthday? That was cold." Michael's face tightened. "That was just Yara's sense of humor. She didn't mean anything by it. She meant exactly what she said," I replied calmly. "And so did all of you when you laughed." The front door opened. "Michael, whose car is in the driveway?" Yara's voice carried into the kitchen. She stepped in, yoga mat under her arm, and froze when she saw me. "Viola," she said, recovering quickly, "you're back from your adventure." The way she said adventure made it sound like a childish escapade, something to be brushed aside. 6 months ago, I would have accepted that framing, eager to smooth things over. Not anymore. "I'm back," I confirmed, "but not staying." Michael's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I've sold the house," I said evenly. "I bought a condominium downtown. I'm moving in next week." "Downtown?" Yara echoed, startled. "But that's so far. How will you help with Tyler's schedule, or Sunday lunches?" There it was again, the belief that my value lived only in my usefulness. "I won't be driving Tyler anymore," I said gently, "and I won't be hosting Sunday lunches. I'd love to meet at a restaurant once a month instead." Michael stared as if I'd started speaking another language. "Mom, what about family? What about us?" "I love you," I said, meaning it, "but I also love myself now. I won't go back to being treated as a convenience instead of a person." "This is ridiculous," Yara snapped, her composure cracking. "You can't just change the rules after all this time." "We depend on you. That's the problem," I answered, meeting her gaze. "You depend on me, but you don't respect me." The silence was heavy. Then Tyler, wiser than his 16 years, broke it. "Grandma's right. You've been taking her for granted." Yara's glare could have wilted flowers. Michael just looked lost, as if the ground beneath him had shifted overnight. "I'm not cutting you out," I continued, voice softening. "I'm changing the terms. I want a relationship based on mutual respect, not obligation." "And if we don't agree to your terms?" Yara challenged. I picked up my purse and stood, a calm resolve settling over me. "Then that will be your choice," I said, "just as this is mine." I left them in their perfect kitchen, surrounded by the life they assumed I'd keep serving. Driving away, I felt no regret, only a deep, steady certainty. The woman who once allowed herself to be diminished was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, clearer, and free. A new year, a new life. 1 year passed faster than I could have imagined. My downtown condo became a true home. Walls alive with photographs from my travels and art from local galleries. I enrolled in photography classes at the community college, joined a lively book club, and volunteered teaching English to new immigrants. All the things I'd quietly dreamed of for years but kept postponing for family duties. I met Michael and Tyler for dinner once a month. Sometimes Yara came, often she didn't. Our relationship stayed polite but distant. Michael wavered between respect and confusion. Tyler, surprisingly, became my strongest ally, often visiting just to escape the polished perfection of his parents' house. "I like it here," he told me one afternoon on my balcony overlooking the park. "It feels real." Yara remained frostily polite when we crossed paths, her smile never reaching her eyes. I knew she saw my independence as a personal betrayal, a rejection of the hierarchy she'd built with herself firmly at the top. 71. As my 71st birthday approached, I decided to host a small gathering, because I wanted to, not out of obligation. "You should invite Michael and his family," Agatha suggested during our weekly video call from Santa Fe, where she now pursued photography full-time. "Even Yara," I teased. "Especially Yara," she said with a knowing smile. "Show her what grace looks like." So I sent invitations to Michael, Yara, and Tyler, and to my new circle of friends. My photography instructor, Sandra, my neighbors David and Ruth, members of my book club. The day arrived warm and clear. I set out simple, elegant hors d'oeuvres, opened wine and sparkling water, and filled vases brought back from Greece with fresh flowers. My home glowed, a reflection of the life I'd built. Guests arrived with hugs and laughter. Then the doorbell rang again. Michael stood there with Tyler at his side. No Yara. "Happy birthday, Mom," Michael said, kissing my cheek. Yara sends her regrets. Charity committee meeting. The old me might have felt stung. The new me simply nodded. "Come in. There are people I'd like you to meet." As I introduced my son and grandson to my friends, I watched Michael's expression shift. Surprise. Then something softer, as he took in this vibrant circle of people who valued me for who I am. Viola the photographer, Viola the traveler, Viola the friend, not just Michael's mother or Tyler's grandmother. For the first time, I saw understanding flicker in his eyes. Tyler slipped easily into conversation with my neighbors, chatting with David about architecture, his latest passion. Michael lingered at the edges, a quiet outsider in the world I'd built without him. When everyone had arrived, Sandra tapped her glass. "I have an announcement," she said, smiling at me. "Our very own Viola has been chosen for the Community Art Center's Emerging Photographers exhibition next month. 3 of her Mediterranean pieces will be featured." Applause filled the room. Michael's eyebrows shot up. "You're a photographer now?" "I'm many things," I said with a gentle smile. "Photography is just one of them." He studied me with new eyes. "You've really changed." "I've finally become myself," I corrected. The evening unfolded with laughter and stories until Sandra brought out a beautiful cake. I noticed Michael checking his phone. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yara's wondering when we'll be home," he admitted. "Her meeting ended early." "Invite her," I said, surprising even myself. "There's plenty of cake." 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Yara stepped in, flawless as always, gift bag in hand. "Happy birthday, Viola," she said, her smile perfectly rehearsed. "Not at all," I replied. "Come join us. We're about to have cake. A different kind of toast." We gathered around the table as my friends offered warm, funny toasts. I watched Yara's eyes move from the art on the walls to the easy conversation around her. When it was my turn, I stood. "Thank you all for being here," I said, looking around at faces both new and familiar. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined standing in my own home surrounded by such wonderful people. I've learned it's never too late to discover who you truly are. Glasses lifted. Even Michael smiled, though something wistful flickered in his eyes. Only Yara remained reserved, her glass barely raised. Later, she approached me quietly. "So this is your new life?" she asked, gesturing at the apartment. "All alone?" "I'm not alone," I said evenly. "I'm independent." "There's a difference." She gave a soft, dismissive laugh. "At your age, isn't it the same thing?" The words echoed her cruel birthday toast from a year ago, but now they carried no sting. "No, Yara," I said calmly. "Being alone is what I felt at that dinner, while you all laughed at the idea of me fading into memory. This," I gestured to my friends, "the art, the warmth, this is being complete." Her practiced smile faltered. Before she could reply, Tyler bounded over. "Grandma, David says you might photograph his daughter's wedding next spring." "Is that true?" "Yes," I said, beaming. "David's been very supportive of my work." "You're doing professional photography now?" Yara asked, eyes widening. "Semi-professional," I clarified. "I've already sold a few pieces." Something shifted in her expression, a reluctant recognition. For the first time, she seemed to see me as a whole person, not just a convenient extension of her household. The last laugh. As the evening wound down, Michael approached with a tentative smile. "This was nice, Mom. Different, but nice. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Michael." "That means a lot," I said, warmed but no longer dependent on his approval. When the last guest left, I stepped onto my balcony, a glass of champagne in hand. The city lights sparkled beneath a cool autumn sky. I thought of the journey, from humiliation to quiet triumph, from invisibility to recognition, from obligation to choice. Yara's toast had been right in one way. The woman I used to be was indeed just a memory. In her place stood someone stronger, clearer, and free. I raised my glass to the stars. "To the last laugh," I whispered. "My story isn't ending. It's only beginning, told now in my own voice, finally loud enough to hear." What would you do in my place? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to reclaim your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story moved you, stay tuned. 2 more of our channel's favorite tales are waiting on the final screen, and they just might surprise you. Thank you for watching, and here's to new beginnings, at any age.